Welcome to Driven, the Unscripted Success podcast, with your hosts, Mike Menino and Nariman Hamden, bringing you insights and stories on achieving personal, professional, and financial success.
Hey guys, I'm Nariman Hamden, and this is Driven Unscripted Success podcast. We've got another great guest on today. We have Bronson Hill. Bronson Hill owns a company called Bronson Equity, and he is a general partner in about 2,500 multifamily units worth over $250 million. He has written a book. He has been a coach and a speaker at several events, helping entrepreneurs learn about generating passive income and investing in real estate. How you doing, Bronson?
I'm good. It's really great to be here, and I'm excited to chat. And you got a bunch of grinders, so I'm excited to talk about how to grow wealth.
Awesome. Where are you zooming in from today?
I'm in Pasadena, California, so not too far from the fires, but on my street, some houses burned down. It's about a mile and a half away, but it's been a little crazy this year, but we're rebuilding. So
That's great. Yeah, I'm down in Florida, so I understand the natural disasters or whatnot. So we're coming back from the last two hurricanes. So we're in the same boat. So let me ask you, let's get started and ask you a couple questions here. So can you kick things off by telling us about what you do and what your business is?
Sure, yeah. So I just a quick background. I was a medical sales professional, made really good money, made over 250K per year. Was grinding though, probably like a lot of your people, and realized like in the medical field, a lot of professionals just couldn't take time off. I worked with a couple of physicians that made over $2 million a year each, but they were working 60 to 80 hours a week every week. And so I realized like financial freedom to me really involved time freedom, right? Being able to actually take time off, take vacations, be able to create and live out things that I value. And so to me, basically, we really in our business, we've kind of created something where we help people to get this passive income. So that's kind of a phrase that people use kind of as a trend, but a lot of people think they have passive income when they don't. So buying a rental house, trading stocks or options online, or buying an online business, these aren't really passive because they're not scalable. So Warren Buffett, this is really the test. He says, unless you learn how to make money while you sleep, you'll work until you die. And so people that are grinders have a hard time with this because they think that I'm just going to keep grinding and grinding and grinding, and then you make the money. And then what do you do with the money so that the money that you make actually works for you so that you don't have to keep going to work, keep going back for the money. So my book, Fire Yourself, it just kind of helps people to do that, create a framework of how do I actually, if I want to, leave my job and just have the passive income coming in. So in our business, we buy real estate. We actually shifted from real estate to go a lot more cash flow and tax benefits. There's something in oil and gas that we're doing provides both. We're also buying private businesses and doing other things that provide cash flow and tax benefits for investors.
Sure. So which market are you in? Are you specifically in California or are you all over?
We're all over. So we have partners that work. We've worked quite a bit in Texas, in Florida, in the Carolinas on the real estate side. Again, we're not, the last couple of years, we've shifted to do less real estate and we're doing more of these other things. So, but the nice thing for me is, my unashamed goal is to own everything and operate nothing. So I have, I can fire myself, right? So I have partners that kind of do all these things, and I invest passively along with our investors as well.
Sure. I like how you labeled yourself as unashamed.
Unashamed.
I totally get that. I mean, you should not be in this business.
Exactly.
So how do you deal with taking risks? Has there been a time when rolling the dice really worked out for you?
Yeah. So I think taking risks, risk is a very interesting thing because sometimes it's if you never take risks, the most secure job people have, a lot of times there's no risk, but there's no upside, right? You get a safe job with a pension. Even today with all this stuff happening in federal jobs, right? It's like, well, are those even safe? So we think we're not taking risk, but there's a lot of risk even in things we don't think have risk. And then when I evaluate risk, it's like, okay, in a deal, or and let's just say I'm pursuing a business opportunity, I want to ask the question, what's the upside here? And if the upside is, 2x or a 3x or 5x or 100, whatever the amount is, okay, well, that's the upside. Well, what is the downside? Do I lose all my money and go bankrupt? Would I go to jail? Would I go those are things that I do not want to have happen in my life, right? So I try to look and say, if the downside is, maybe I pursued it, and I think entrepreneurs or professionals can understand this. If I pursued something and really I put a bunch of time into it and a little bit of money, but if it doesn't work out, I lose maybe a little bit of money and some time, but I learn something. I think that's a good investment, right? If it has upside and there's minimal downside. So I think that in general, being able to evaluate risk is really important. We've had, deals we invested in. We actually had one in Florida that basically we invested in. About 10 months later, the property, we bought it for 27 million. 10 months later, it's worth 37 million. It wasn't our own genius. It was just the timing and the market and the way things were. So we
Right.
sold it. So we made almost 100% return for our investors, right? It was incredible, right? So that's something that was a home run. Now we've had other deals we've lost money on, or we've had deals that didn't go as well, right? So I think it's being able to learn, and everything is information and learning. The challenge is when things go well, you think you're just that good and you're that smart and you're that amazing, but you don't learn anything from it, right?
Right.
You take less, you take more risks. When things don't go well, then you can take a step back and say, well, what did I learn here? What's the thing here? And I've seen too many people when they go through something and it does not go well, Nerman, they kind of evaluate it, take it really personally, or they just, I'm never going to do this certain thing again, versus saying, well, hey, here's a great lesson. It cost me a little bit or some money to do this, but now I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow from this.
Sure. And taking that, bad situation and going, okay, well, this is where it went bad. So now I know for the next project that we're not going to do this part of it. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? And let's not apply that to it. Let's try this instead. So
100%.
yeah, I totally agree. I mean, no risk, no reward,
Yeah,
especially in this
100%.
business, it's definitely not for the weary.
Yeah, that's for
Let's
sure.
say that. So, what's a skill or habit you think doesn't get enough credit for contributing to your success?
I think there's two things that really get people to the next level. I'm writing my second book now called Rich Brain. It comes from 2,500 interviews I've had with millionaires. And basically, it comes down to these two things that most people have done. Is the first one, these don't sound super sexy, but they absolutely transform people's lives. The first one is networking. And it's not just handing business cards or shaking hands or things like that. It's actually thinking, what can I do to help and serve this person that I'm meeting? Or is there a way I can provide value? That's what good networking is. It's a give first
Sure.
mentality. And so if people are doing that, and then, it can be very transformative. I mean, I've gone to an event that was a high ticket event. I paid $7,000 to go on a cruise for a week, approached a guy, pitched him on an idea. And then over the next 18 months, we raised $15 million together, and I was able to leave my corporate job, right? That was like me, the
Wow.
rocket ship. And I'd only raised 100,000
Sure.
before that. So those things do exist, but it's how you approach people in that situation. So I think that's probably the biggest one. The second one really is on the education side. Everybody that I look at, and I'm not talking formal education or getting a PhD or getting a master's degree, but I mean, you look at Warren Buffett, you look at Mark Cuban, Oprah Winfrey, a lot of billionaires, people that are very successful, they spend hours a day reading books and learning.
Sure.
And so a lot of times, like think, man, these people are the busiest people in the world, and why are they spending all this time? It's because, as Henry Ford said, thinking is hard work, which is why so few people do it. Right. So if you want to transform your life, there's a quote that says you'll be the same person right 5 years from now. You'll be the same person except for the books you read and the people that you meet. Right. So it's the networking and it's the education.
Sure, sure. I totally agree with that. You know, um, so staying on top of any industry is tough. So what's something exciting that you see on the horizon in your industry, and how are you getting ready for it?
Well, I think the amazing thing about investing is that it's always changing. It's almost as if I look at it. Tony Robbins, who's a motivational speaker I follow, he talks about, money master the game, and a lot of people talk about it actually as being a game. So if you imagine playing a board game, and every day you show up, the pieces are in a slightly different place, or they're kind of moving. It kind of keeps changing. So it's a very dynamic game that you can play and you learn. And so as you learn kind of what's happening, there's always opportunities that come up. So I think that the benefit of being an investor, and I don't just say I call myself an investor that invests in all different assets. I'm not stuck to real estate, or I'm not stuck to oil and gas, or I'm not stuck to precious metals or stocks, or I can do all of these things. And there are times where it makes sense to be a real estate investor. It makes sense to buy precious metals. It makes sense to buy
Sure.
businesses. So the things that we love right now, like I said, real estate is not providing much cash flow right now. It's very hard to put money into a
Mhm.
deal and have any cash flow. A lot of times you're negative cash flow, especially where I live in Southern California. It's like, I mean, it's crazy that the spread between owning, I mean, it's just nuts. So if I want cash flow, which is really what allows me to get financial freedom, then I've got to go into things like private businesses, oil and gas. There's also real estate debt funds, which are the lender. You actually kind of become the bank and you make loans and you get cash flow that way. So these are all ways that people are finding a way to be able to cover living expenses. And I know guys worth over $500 million. He loves cash flow. I know people that are trying to find a way, if I wanted to leave a job, or even if I love my job, having the flexibility if something came up, God forbid, a health issue or something happened with a family member, I could have the freedom to be able to leave. So I think just, the education side, continue to learn, looking at the board continually, seeing how things are changing. And I'm just seeing incredible opportunities in buying businesses and also other, oil and gas, other types of projects right now. But there'll be other things, eventually it will be real estate again.
Sure. I mean, there's always a good opportunity out there once you do your due diligence and weigh out, the good and bad in it. And I mean, just like anything. So, so yeah, I mean, you kind of have to go with how the market is. If real estate's starting to get challenging, which as we know it is right now, it's a little stagnant. But then again, real estate's always up and down, just like anything else. So then you just find another avenue, like you have with the oil. Not sure what you're doing with that, but that sounds something I'd like to ask you about later.
Sure.
So, leading a team has its challenges. What's your leadership style? And can you give us an example of how that helped you through a tough spot?
Well, my leadership style used to be I would just do everything myself. And then I realized like that didn't work when I had a team, and I would just kind of do everything and they'd be staring, what do I do? So I think as a leader, there's some books out by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. I just interviewed him on my podcast this week, who wrote the book, Who Not How. Yeah, along with Dan Sullivan, who leads Strategic Coach. And the idea is, to create a self-managing company, right? So how do I create a company that not only exists when I'm not there, but that actually thrives when I'm not there, right? So I last year I traveled 6 times internationally. My goal is to work this year. My goal this year in 2025 is to take 145 days off where I don't check the phone, I don't look, I don't take calls, I don't work on the weekends, I don't do all this stuff. Because the problem is there's a rule called Parkinson's law that it says that tasks fill the time of the amount of time allotted to them, right? So if I have all day to finish a project, how long is it going to take me? It's going to take
All day.
all day. If you have an hour, you're
Exactly.
going to finish it in an
Yeah.
hour. So I think that so that's one thing just from a management standpoint. But I think with people on team members, I think it's just realizing, like, continuing to come back. And I do this kind of probably ad nauseum with my team. I've got a few team members, and I just come back, well, this is our values. This is what we're creating. We're doing excellence. And I call out the things when I see it in people. And when they step up, I tell them, hey, that you did a great job here, great job with this. And I just try to, I realize in my business, I've kind of was a little bit of a control freak when I was in sales, because it was successful because I controlled everything, right? I did everything myself.
Sure.
But when you have a team, if they can get it to 80% as good as I would get it, then that's probably good enough, right? And I can go do other things. I can do higher value things, right? Instead of, as Michael Gerber says, instead of working in the business, I'm working on the business.
Sure. And it gets to be trusting yourself with trusting your team and being able to delegate
Yeah.
different jobs for them or different tasks for them, where you have to learn to let go. So it comes within as well as having your own discipline for yourself and being able to say, okay, you know what? This is why I built a team. I mean, they need tasks. I can't continue having a team and then doing it all on my own.
Yeah.
On top of it, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, when we dictate like I need this done, and we tell them also want you to do it this way. It takes some of the autonomy out of it, right? If you just say, hey, I just need to get this done, figured out.
Sure.
Like, actually, a lot of people don't like their jobs because they don't have enough control or autonomy or authority. So if you just tell them, hey, I'm looking to get this is our objectives, and they figure it out, and you're like, great. That's how you create leaders, right? You basically just
for
tell them the
sure.
outcomes you want, and then you can have process and things you want them to do. But like, even with my team, they like having very directive things. No, you figure this out. You can do this, and I keep kind of helping support them. So what I'm doing is I'm nurturing and developing them so they become leaders themselves.
Right. And then you're also holding them accountable, that, hey, this is a task. This is why you're in this position. So I know basically you don't need me to tell you exactly how to do it or how I want it done. This is your department. So run with it, like it helps them, grow more as well with learning in their position to be better and make things more efficient and just operate better.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing I think I realized too, and everybody, you have a business as well, and everybody listening, a lot of people are in, a lot of this is just development of people. And I think if you can offer people, you offer them money and that's fine, but like if you can develop someone, it's like
Absolutely.
you're really serving them. I mean, they can become and I realize that at the end of the day, some people stay with us for years and years, some people leave and go on other things. But regardless, like people are not their jobs. They don't exist to work for you, right? Like they have like we have
Sure.
and maybe they're calling and we have people that are just great at certain things. And I've called, hey, you're a really great integrator. If you work on this, why don't you set up and they end up leaving because it's actually better for them, right? And we keep in touch, but we create a culture of, hey, we're trying to really help people get where they want to go. And I think if you do that, it just really creates much more of a like, it's not just about serving this organization and me. It's like, how can we serve each other? And it really means a lot, and they stay very loyal to you. That.
Sure, yeah, because I mean, you're building a partnership with them, and then in turn, it's there's a trust factor that's growing and building between the two of you, and not to mention the confidence that it's building in them as well by allowing them to just go do what you do. This is why
Yeah.
that's why I partnered with you. Like don't hesitate, just run with it.
Yeah.
So that's so cool. So. How do you, well, actually, let me ask you. So, leading a team has its challenges, as we were just discussing. So, well, actually, you kind of described your leadership style. So, when you get in a tough spot in your leadership, how do you navigate through that?
I think that as a leader, it's so important, and even just as an individual, to have mentors. Now, a few mentors do I what I call them. Hey, this is my mentor. As if you probably do, but a lot of times it's like, hey, who do I call in this situation? I don't have one mentor that solves my problems for different things. Sometimes if I have an issue with my family, with my daughter. My daughter's 12, and it's like if I have a parenting thing, I have somebody I go to talk to about that. If I have something that I'm wrestling with in just a personal area, I'll go to someone else. If it's someone like, hey, it's a financial thing or it's in a business, like I'll go to so I try to really pick people that, I respect a lot, that I value what they're going to think. They're not going to just, talk down to me, but they're really going to appreciate that. And I've realized as people get older and they get more successful, the role of giving back is so rewarding for people. Like I know people there's a guy who did the forward to my book, Ken McElroy, and he has over 3 billion in real estate. He works with Robert Kiyosaki on all of his real estate stuff. And I realized like, I can't really offer this guy anything. I can kind of talk about his events. I can kind of point people to him and whatever, but like, he just loves giving back. So I try to honor him. So we have our mastermind for high net worth investors called the Wealth Forum. He came and spoke at it. So I got him the Lifetime Achievement Award, which is like this little globe thing with this crystal thing. And we did some pictures. And it was really awesome to be able to celebrate him, right? Because he's made such a big difference in my life. And so I think sometimes for mentors, you just knowing who you can go to and then also finding a way to just make it a mutual beneficial relationship as well.
Absolutely. So, how do you encourage your team to think outside of the box and bring new ideas to the table?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we try to, again, look at what are our values, what are we trying to create, and then when something works, I celebrate it. So I'll call them out in front of the team. So I'll give them little bonuses, just kind of sometimes like, hey, this really moved the needle. This is awesome, and I'll give them a cash bonus, or I'll say, hey, you get a raise. Obviously there's financial things, but a lot of people. You just have to find out really what motivates them. For some
Sure.
people it's money, some people it's not. Some people they want other things. And so you have to figure out what really motivates that person. And then when you, like you said, you get something that you want, whatever you reward will be repeated. So if you want to have something that, like
Yeah.
there's just all kind of go. One thing I want to get booked on more podcasts, right? So we booked like 30 podcasts in 30 days or something. So I have a team member doing that. I was like, well, that's amazing. Well, let me find a way to reward you for that because that's helping out in our business,
Sure.
right? So I think
Yeah.
that's one example. Yeah.
And then while you're at it, let's find a duplicate of you to fill in for 30 days of podcasts in a row.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I'll just do AI
So
me and I
double
Bronson to go
challenge,
do it. Yeah, exactly.
and reward, I think.
Yeah.
So what's a day in your life look like, and how do you juggle work and everything else?
Well, I have really several types of days. So my day, there's a lot of variety. I do like variety. So typically Monday, Tuesdays, I do a lot of calls. I have calls with investors. We have a lot of, I don't know, we have a big list of, people that get on our list that want to hear about our deals. So I'll have calls with them. I'll do podcast interviews, my own, and then be on other people's podcasts. Also kind of be solving problems or answering emails. Wednesdays and Fridays, I typically do more deep think days. So I'll kind of take time to work on bigger projects, work on the next book, work on maybe even getting getting lunch with people in the area just to kind of spend a little time out of the office. And then I'll have free days where it's like when I go, next week I'm going to Albania and Croatia, where I'm out for, about a week and a half, right? So I'll have days where I'm trying to, okay, how can I shut it down and just not be on the phone, let
Right.
my team handle it,
Right. Because it is easy, when well, at least for me, when I'm traveling, the phone makes everything just so easy and so accessible,
yeah,
where it's like, oh, it's not a big deal. I'll just text them back, but then it's like, at what point do you disconnect from the matrix and actually just chill, because it just
yeah,
becomes part of life,
yeah.
where it's like, "Oh, I'm on vacation, but it's not that big of a deal, on either end, but sure. So hopefully you can just disconnect from the matrix when you're gone next week.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, no,
So
I plan to shut it down and take some days. I'll check in with the office maybe 1 or 2 days, but trying to, mostly shut it down. So,
try restraint.
yes.
So has there been a book or podcast or someone that's really changed your outlook or approach?
I'll give 2 books. I'm a big book reader. My goal this year is 90 books, so I'm hoping to I'm at 39 so far this year
Awesome.
and in April, so working on it. But yeah, the one book, again, there's this huge link between personal development and business or career growth. And so a lot of people, like almost always, I have a breakthrough in my personal development. So I work on something, I go to therapy, I go to an event, I have a conversation, something happens, and all of a sudden my business takes off. And this basically enabled me to 20x my net worth in about 4 years, right? Just continuing
Wow.
to do the mindset work.
Sure.
So the number one book I'd recommend, a lot of people may not have heard of it. It's called The Gifts of Imperfection, and it's by Brené Brown. And I found this book. It really talks about authenticity, living from a place of the heart. I went through a divorce about 8 years ago, and it kind of really allowed me to kind of work through some of this and live from an authentic place. So that's one. The other one is written by a former FBI hostage negotiator. The book
Hmm.
is called Never Split the Difference. And I actually had to have lunch with him one time. His name is Chris Voss. And he just talks about all the negotiations we have in life with our team, with our romantic partner, with, just people crossing the street. Everything's in negotiation. So how do you
Sure.
create a way that really wins for everyone? He's got some amazing stories in there. So those are the 2 books I recommend.
Very cool. I'll have to check those out. I'm not familiar with them. So how do you tackle learning new things, especially stuff that's outside of your comfort zone?
I think I do things that are challenging for me, and so I think the challenge is sometimes as we get in our 30s, 40s, 50s, older, like we start saying, well, this is the person that I am, and I don't do these things. And so I was in Colombia on a trip a couple months ago, and I was there, and I met a guy who just had been doing Duolingo, the little language learning app, for years. And so I was like, I'm just going to start doing it. So I'm on day 67 of just doing a little bit every day, and my Spanish is getting a little bit better, right? So these
Right.
things kind of happen over time. Yeah. And then so I think it's being willing to try new things. So it's like, okay, well, I did a little swing dancing in the past. I'm an okay swing dancer, but like, okay, well, now I'll try salsa, or now I'll just try other dances, right? Or try other things. And so it's not always related to work, but again, I teach myself that I'm someone that like I can reinvent myself. So I've gone from my career path I was a youth pastor for a few years, thought I would be a
Okay.
pastor. So I did that for a while, loved helping students and had a great time with that. Became a medical device sales rep and made really good money doing that for 10 years. I did that. And then for the last, 4 or 5 years, been in this private equity space. And I just continue to try to reinvent. And this is, I think, how people, especially with AI and the way things are going, there could be whole jobs people are doing. Listeners, I'm an accountant, this type of role. And all of a sudden I've been doing it for 20 years and the job is gone. It's been outsourced to AI. It's been out. So I think the idea of reinvention and continuing to learn is so important, and being willing to try new things is essential.
Sure, absolutely. So, managing finances is crucial, both in business and in personal life. How do you approach financial planning to ensure stability and growth in both areas?
Well, I think I was a what's called a registered investment advisor, or an RIA, while I was doing the medical sales I did that for a few years. And so the acronym is an RIA. And so now I'm still an RIA, but I call myself a recovering investment advisor, right? So there's things that I learned about finance that basically most of what we're taught about finance, in my opinion, is wrong for most people because the problem is people that become billionaires or multi-hundred millionaires, they never follow the traditional advice. They do something, they concentrate on a business, they do things very different. I think, again, the challenge is for a lot of people, and I imagine a lot of your listeners are making a lot of money. Well, there are ways to reduce taxes. One of my chapters in my book, Fire Yourself, is reduce your taxes potentially to zero. I went from paying a 25% effective tax rate to paying about a 1% effective tax rate, right? Now, how did I do that? Well, then just by learning how to learning how to invest in certain things that reduce
Sure.
taxes. So I think that everybody's different, but I think that you should spend a fair amount of time learning about wealth because we work so hard to make it. And then if we don't learn about it, we're just in the process of kind of giving it back. And again, if we don't learn again that idea of money making money or reducing taxes, then we're going to kind of just continue to be a slave to the job or to the business.
Sure. So if you had one bit of advice for someone wanting to follow in your footsteps, what would that be? Run.
Um,
Kidding.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
everybody's story, of course, is different. I think
Sure.
I would go to paid events where they're called like paid masterminds. We have one, other groups have them, where you're in the room with people that are, 10x, 100x of where you're at. Now, it can be in wealth. It could be in areas of health. It could be in areas of spirituality, but paying to be in rooms, because when people pay to be in rooms, they tend to be much more serious about whatever the thing is. And if you are, there's another quote that says you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And I really think this is true in just about every area of your life. If I look at your life, or if somebody looks at my life, you can say, well, if you look at your closest friends, well, you're probably an average of the net worth of those people, or you're probably the average of the health habits of those people. So if you want to change that, you've got to really be pushing into bigger rooms. If you're the smartest person in the room, definitely need to find a different room.
Sure. Sure. So how do you balance your personal growth and professional demands throughout your career?
I look at personal growth as being a part-time job. I literally look at it like, as I work 40 hours a week in my job, or in my career, what I'm doing. Obviously I take time off, but I look at it like, I have a learning goal. Like my learning goal this year is to read 90 to 100 books, right? And I think I have a chance to get over 100. Like that would be awesome, right? Because again, it's not just like you can get anything from ChatGPT, everything's out there in the library, but it's being able to access information at the moment that you need it. ChatGPT can make connections, but you have to be able to ask the questions of how to make those connections. So when I read a biography that's unrelated from a historical figure or a political figure, that can apply to what, in my situation, how I'm dealing with that. When I read a business leader, if I read about, John Rockefeller, or I read about Cornelius Vanderbilt, I can see that the amazing ways they grew wealth or the pitfalls that they had, and I can learn from those things, almost like they become a mentor to me as well. So I really look at it as being that like the most important investment you make is in yourself. And a big way of that is through learning, reading books, great podcasts like this, and you have to, I think you really, if you're serious about growing your wealth and growing your life, you have to look at it like this is as much, a part-time job as anything else. I really need to be investing in this.
Sure. And it's basically, I mean, it goes hand in hand. It's a way of life,
Yeah.
because it's going to help you with business, but it's also going to help you with your personal, so it's both, which is awesome. So let me ask you, can you share a personal habit or routine that has significantly contributed to your personal and professional growth and success?
Yeah, so I do a lot of there's a lot of visualization I use, and a lot of just creating the future now. So there's a great book that a lot of people haven't read, but you talk to people that are really wealthy. Actually, for a number of your listeners may have read this. Is a book by Napoleon Hill. Now my last name is Hill. He's not my cousin, but I wish he was. But the book's called Think and Grow Rich. And he basically talks about, one of the things he says in there, he says, spend 30 minutes a day thinking about the person that you intend to become. Right now, 30 minutes is a long time. Obviously, they didn't have the internet 80 years ago, and so there was less things to do. But this is the idea of like you as a 10x or 100x type wealth person or impact. You can walk into a situation. What is that like? If you were to just think about what it would be like to be that person, what would that feel like? That'd be a very powerful place to come from. So if you can, the more time you can spend visualizing and creating. I also do affirmations, or I call them whisperings, where it's not just the things we say in the mirror, it's the things we whisper to ourselves. And I think through our words, we actually create those things. And so these things sound really weird. And they tell you meet people that, like, most people that have a net worth of more than 10 million, like, do something like this. They have some sort of mindset practice they do. And so my new book, Rich Brain, I'm going to be talking about what are those practices people do, be able to get to the next level. And the one thing I was going to say real quick is that most people think that people that are wealthy, that are millionaires, that they inherited it. That's kind of the common theme in our culture. Most people think that it's inherited.
Everything was handed down or given to someone,
Exactly. So there's this class warfare, but the fact is, Fidelity Investments did a study in 2019 that found that 86% of millionaires, Nerman, are self-made, right? So 86%,
Okay.
almost 9 out of 10 figured out a way to do. So these are learnable, teachable things. And, about 80% of it is just what's in your mind.
Sure. Sure. So, obviously it sounds like things are going very well for you and your business. As you're looking towards the future, um, what other source of passive income do you look into or invest in besides just the real estate?
Yeah, so I'll mention the oil and gas one, which I think is really interesting. Oil and gas has some unique ways of going about it. Sometimes you can own the land. It is kind of a real estate play. You own the land and you get residuals on all of the oil that is drilled. That's one way to do it. The other way I think is compelling for a lot of high earners. So there's a lot of people that I worked with as physicians that were paying 40, 50, 60% in taxes when you looked at their total tax burden. And there's a way, if people invest in oil and gas drilling deals, and obviously there's some vetting that goes into it, finding the right partners, but 100K invested reduces their taxable income by around 80 to 85,000. It's called intangible
Really?
drilling costs. Yeah, it's kind of like a silver
Oh,
bullet, and it's one of the only things that exists in the tax code that allows high earners to do this. So, for example, if I make 200,000 a year, I invest 100,000 in a deal like that. It shows my taxable income then is only 115 to 120,000. So I've saved basically, depending on my tax rate, 20 to 25,000 in year one without even getting any return from it, just from the taxes that I would save, right? So if people have a big tax bill, they sold a business, they make, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a year, looking into these strategies are incredibly valuable because not only do you get the back end, which is typically, 15 to 25% conservatively, and there's risk there and there's things. The technology has improved quite a bit though in oil and gas drilling to where they can do testing and still with a pretty high degree of likelihood there's oil down there. And if they miss on the way down on the vertical, they can go horizontal and turn the drill 90 degrees and drill for a mile or two sideways. So it does happen. There's a dry hole, but it's much less common than it was in the past. And so anyway, there's things around it, but I like looking into those types of things for people because they just don't even realize that this exists.
right. Yeah, that's fascinating. We'll have to discuss that more after the show.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
that's pretty interesting. So as we're wrapping up our interview, what exciting plans or initiatives do you have in the works for the next 6 to 12 months? I know you got your book coming out, so
Yeah. One thing we're really passionate about as well on the business side is that there's a lot of, if we look at real estate, commercial real estate, big business, like I said, they're not producing much cash flow. A lot of businesses that are kind of mid-size or smaller businesses, and I'm saying typically 30 million in revenue per year or less, they'll sell for typically around 3 to 4 times profit, which is kind of crazy. So that means, a business, and I'll give an example of this. We were in process of buying a business that imports products from China. And of course, that's on hold because of the tariffs. But this is just and this is not just in this field, but in other areas. The business did 27 million a year in sales. It was about 5 million a year in profit. And basically, with a loan, we basically going to purchase the business for $13 million. So again, we have 5 million in profit, $13 million. We could get a loan for over $10 million of that, bring $2.5 million in cash to buy a business that produces $5 million a year in cash flow. Right. So the money out of pocket is 2.5 million we raised from investors, and we're producing 5 million per year in cash flow. Obviously, we have a loan, we have other things there, but the numbers are crazy. So this is where, and you say, why does a business sell like that? Well, it's not a big enough business that private equity is interested in it, but it's small. It's too small. So it's smaller operators that would kind of work with it. So anyway, there's
mhm.
things that exist in investing that if you're of a certain size, it just cash flow can be really great, or there's opportunities to grow the business or things like that. So that's what I'm very excited about buying businesses.
Sure, that's exciting. So so if anybody wants to get a hold of you, how do they connect with you?
Yeah, well, thanks so much. This has been great being here, Nairman. I have a free gift for your listeners. This is
Oh,
basically
awesome.
Yeah, this is basically something I put together. It's everybody's been pained by inflation. They say inflation is only 3 or 4% officially, but things cost 50 to 100% more than they did 5 years ago. Everybody looks at groceries and costs of just about everything, and it's twice as much on just about around. So really, the thing is, we know there's going to be more inflation. So how do you use it to your advantage? There's this guide that I wrote, How to Use Inflation to Your Advantage. So if you text, it's about 30 pages. It's some creative strategies using real estate, precious metals, borrowing, some unique things people haven't heard of.
Mhm.
If you text the word inflation to the number 33777. So the word inflation to 33777. We'll send that to you for free. It'll ask for your email. And then we'll keep you up with, if you want to hear about our deals or other things, I'll let you know about that as well. It's the best way to connect. So yeah, thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks
was
so
a
much.
lot
It's
of
been a lot of
fun.
fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was a
It's
lot
great.
of fun. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and you've got a great energy and just great perspective on life and business. So you're
Thanks.
doing well. So that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, and thanks guys for tuning in. So if you want to get a hold of Bronson Hill, and to get that freebie that he is giving you to help you out, just text the number 33777 and type in inflation. See you guys soon.
Thanks for listening to Driven, the Unscripted Success Podcast. Want to share your story? Apply to be a guest at drivensuccesspodcast.com/guest.